like to introduce to you Reverend R.J. Hampton. He is a native of Newport, Arkansas. He is the third child of Cornell and Lucille Hampton. Mr. Hampton received an Associates of Arts degree from Shorter College in 1956. In 1959, he graduated from Arkansas Agricultural, Mechanical, and Normal College, AM&N, UAPB. With a BA of Arts degree in the field of sociology. Mr. Hampton's life is and has been filled with interesting adventures. To sum it up in a few words, he has been preaching since the age of 16. He founded an adult education school. He was the first Black to run for office in Arkansas. He published a weekly newspaper called Arkansas Mirror. He is the founder of Hampton Printing Company. He also founded a public relation firm called Reginald Jeffrey and Associates, and was the president of Shorter College. I introduce to you now Reverend R.J. Hampton.
I had to thank T.O. I tried to pronounce her name, but she told me just O, and I knew about T. And so T.O. and this organization for providing this opportunity for a number of us to speak about our experiences, especially for me. I come today with possibly with the pathos of what we all are going through. I listened here. I had the opportunity of pastoring half of the folk that Beard talked about. I knew all Annie. I think she got her age a little different. I think it's a little bit older than that. And with Dilworth, I've had quite experience. The one thing I think that's been missing here is that we have not dealt with the problems that we faced, and all the people that have been up here and what we talked about, we have not dealt with what they went through. To do that, Dilworth, I was, my wife woke me up one morning, over the night rather, pulling on me. She said, wake up and tell me some more of those old stories. Well, I used to tell a lot of stories about how I came up and everything. And that's what I didn't tell her, that Dilworth, I was in her house in Gould, and she was quite a person. And we noticed that there were several cars and trucks that were parked around her house, around the corner. She said, I think this police better not leave here. This was during the time of the movement. And I said, well, I got to go home. I'd been down in that area working, and she said, you better not go. But I was stubborn, and I got in the car. I thought I had a pretty good car. And I took out. And about half a mile, 4 or 5 cars stopped me. And they pulled me out of the car. And I was talking fast. I said, I work for the government. I'm down here. I've been sent down here to spy on these folk out here, this civil rights folk. And at that time, they let me alone a little bit, but they carried me to jail. I spent the night in jail, whole night in jail because of that. And the sheriff, to give you another idea, he couldn't write, couldn't read or write. And the story is that many people that he picked up, they just write his name on it, he'd go to court. And he was the one that was being tried. Now, I'm a great speaker, I'm a preacher, I'm a great speaker, and I'm a good preacher. And the reason I'm a great preacher now is that I make the people shout. And I keep preaching until they shout. So I've got so good lately that when I get up, they start shouting. But my story is I'm a poet and I'm an author. I've published several books, and I will deal with some of that. And then I've written a play. I want to deal with it. I will give you a glimpse of it. That's advertised. I hope you'll come to some things I'm putting on. But I'm in my pursuit of the American dream. I've had a lot of difficulties. It hasn't been easy. I've had some good times. Something you may not know about me, Annie and my good friend Hendricks and all, is that I never finished high school. I took a test and went to college, and I'm a product of 8 colleges, universities. University of Miami, business degree, Rockefeller paid for it, and the American University of Washington, D.C. in political science, and ITC down in Atlanta, and some others. But you know, I don't know why they kept sending me to school. I think they just thought I needed to know something. Everybody wanted to pay for me to go to school. I never did quite understand what was behind all of that. But nevertheless, those were some of the experiences I've had. I've suffered dearly because of it. It hasn't been easy. And that's what I was saying. I would hope that somehow or another that we'd get out here that it's not easy. Because of things I've done, I've ostracized. I had to resign from college. I was president short of college twice, so I had to resign from that position. I ran for governor. When I ran for governor, they told me that, my bishop always said, you can't run for governor. When I ran for, he said, now you can run, he said, for lieutenant governor, but you can't run for governor. I said, well, I've been lieutenant all my life, and I sure ain't gonna run for that. If I'm gonna run for that, I'm gonna run for the top thing. But I've suffered dearly, and people who have gotten out here and led the way out here, they have suffered. And Beard, and the thing I like about what Beard said here in his book, well, the one thing he did, he pointed out people who tried and who opened the doors and who made the way. We remember all of them that were elected. But before they were elected, there were people that ran and didn't get elected, that paved the way for these people. They gave them the courage. But those are the forgotten people. And I want to thank you, and I think that this book should be in every library we got in the state and across this country. I want to give you a little brief background of the climate. And this area that we've been talking about is an unusual area from 1955 to about 1978. A lot was happening at this time. A lot of things were happening, and it was sort of a golden age. During this time, the many organizations and all that we had that were here that were working. Vernon Jordan was sent in here. We had the Council on Human Relations. We had OIC. We had Economic Development. We had all of these organizations that came in here at this time, and this was an unusual time. in the history of, and it was said back then, that up until that time, up until 1973, 72 when they elected, we did not have anyone. It's been said it had been over 80 or 90 years before we had anybody in the legislature, in the assembly. In 1970 is when I ran for governor, and in my speech, TV speech on the eve of the election, I pointed out that I was in uncharted waters, but that because of this in my audacity to run, that we soon would see black men and women in the General Assembly. And do you know, the very next year, the next election, we elected one black senator and 3 representatives. I suffered dearly for it. As I said, I was ostracized. I've seen the time because of my run that I hated to see the sun come up. You never lived it when people were knocking on my door and trying to get in. But then after that run, after that race, I could walk up to a group of people and a group of ministers and all, and they would turn and walk away. These are the times. I couldn't get a job for 18 months. I left my company to go to be president of Charter College for $7,000 a month. I left, I was making $8,000 a week. The price that we have, and many of us have had to pay, is a thing that we must look into. And the thing I want, if I jump back another thing about the legislation, I want it to be known that when we elected those 4 people, that black delegation was the most experienced and most educated delegation in that General Assembly. Dr. Jewell, Dr. Townsend, Hank, every one of them. We had the most qualified delegation in that General Assembly that had been held out for many years simply because they were of a different color. And it's been pointed out a moment ago. I think somehow or another that we get into this, that when we began to talk about we need some way or another, and I said this body here, it needs somehow, someone should be commissioned to get the records, because when we do it ourselves, we write about the people we know, and we write about the people we like. We write about the people we come in contact with, and we leave so many people out who have made all kinds of sacrifices to bring us to the point where we are. As you listen here today, for the many speakers, I know what they have come through, and I've been a part of it. And as I look out there today, I know that there are many that are out there today that have made similar contributions as those that have been, but they have been overlooked. And many times they have been forgotten. So this is what it is, and I've been in so many things, I didn't want to go, I couldn't talk about everything that I would like to talk about, and thank God they put me at the end, because you don't have to speak well to be at the end. Just speak short and everybody think you did a great big job. Because they could all go home. But I want to leave with you, and I told them this, that and I give you a little time. It's better for you to ask some questions. But this is a play that I wrote. It would be presented, and I bargained with these people. I said, I'd come up here if you all let me talk about some things that I'm trying to do. We'll be presenting in a few months a play I've written, and I want to let you get a glimpse of it. It's called I Hear Voices. And it is my belief that every word that has ever been spoken still lives in the ether of this universe. And if somehow or another we attune ourselves, we can hear those voices. Just as you are speaking sometimes on the telephone and the voice breaks in. Have any of y'all experienced that? So it is voices that are in the universe. They never die. And if you tune yourself into them, you can hear them. This is about an old lady who hears voices. Listen. Listen. I hear voices. I hear voices rumbling across the centuries, spanning oceans and continents. A great, deep chorus of voices. Listen. Listen. I hear dialects. I hear different dialects. I hear inaudible languages. I hear broken English. Listen. Listen. I hear cries. I hear groans. Painful groans. I hear prayers and songs. Listen. I hear pleadings. I hear laughter. Listen. I hear voices from the mud huts of the bush country and from little villages sprinkled up and down the ivory coast of Africa. I hear the distant voices of mothers and fathers, wives and husbands, brothers and sisters, grieving for loved ones, snatched from play and ploy and chained and caged. Loved ones who slowly vanished in yonder's mighty waters, never to be seen anymore. Listen. Listen. I hear voices from the cramped and filthy hull of slave ships. Cries and groans, the cries of young women dying chained and unattended from childbirth. Listen. I hear the voices of those black like me, bellowing out of the deep recesses of the Atlantic Ocean, of those who lay cold, lifeless, exiles, snatched from their motherland by thieves to die from cold and heat, from disease and starvation, and from the hands of so-called civilized men. Listen. Listen. I hear more voices from those ships. Strong, brave voices. Voices of those determined to survive, refusing to be silenced. I hear voices beaming across the ages, prayers for deliverance, deliverance from the burning suns of cotton fields, from the biting cold and snow and sleet, and from the maim and sting of the master's whip. Listen. Listen. I hear songs. Songs in deep baritone voices. Songs that lay bare the sufferings and hopes of a people. Listen. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Listen, all of God's children got shoes. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Listen, steal away. Listen. I hear voices. Come on, children. Don't stop now. You's got to make it. We's depended on y'all. We's a watching on y'all. We's done prayed for y'all, and we's done died for y'all. And we've been promised by the good Lord that someday y'all's gonna be free. Get up, children. Get up, children, and keep on a-coming. Someday y'all gonna be free. Listen, I hear laughter. Laughter bellowing out of the Atlantic deep, out of the fields of Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, and Arkansas, from out of the shallow graves and swamps and bayous. I hear laughter. Black folks gonna be free. Black folks gonna be free. I don't know what you have at the time. If you had a question or two, I would be glad to answer it.
RJ, I know not only you have traveled all up and down the highways and trails throughout Arkansas, would you speak to the importance of the travels in Africa that you've been through? And I want to appeal to everybody here today. Sometimes it just makes me cry when I realize how many people, 75 years old, that have never been to this building and never told nobody about this building. But for my 85th birthday, I took a busload of folks, and I may still have to pay for some of them that the check bounced, to be there for the ribbon cutting of the Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture, because I knew it was important if I took a busload there, like I did for the first national holiday for Martin Luther King with 22 children, that I was investing so that you won't die. There'll be a play that I can get to hear somebody do, just like they are doing one on Hamilton. How important was it for you to visit the place, Ghana, where those people were loaded on to come to Jamestown? How important is that for those who brag about they've been on a cruise?
And I think it is. Thank you. You know, Anna is the godmother for all of us around here. I did have the opportunity when I was attending the American University. I've had some unusual experiences. To go to Jamestown there, and I was the only black that, now let me get this, I was the only black that lived on the campus of the American University in Washington. And it was a terrible experience. I had a roommate. He only spoke to me. He never asked me to go with him anywhere. It was a very, very terrible experience. But it is something that we are really not acquainted with Africa. And what I doubt many of you don't know, now some of you may know it, but Africans cannot come into this country just like they were Europeans. I mean, you talk about the ban, you can't come into this country, not from Africa. When I was president of college, I had kids, young men and women who graduated, and I'd see them break down and cry because they had to go back to Africa. Now, how many of you really knew that? I see one. You would think, now we're making the cry, and certainly I want you to know where I am. I'm not with Donald Trump on that. But it is also, we got to be fair all over this country, this world. Black people cannot come into this country without going through an awful lot, and most times the only way they get here is they come here on a student visa. See, so that is and let me thing I want to get over to. Let me ask you all these questions. How many of you knew? And Anna knows everything. She can ask me all kinds of stuff here. But how many of you knew how much the annual income of white men was in 1930, late 30s and early 40s, up to about 43? How many of you know what the annual income was? Tell me somebody. Y'all either guess at it. You don't have to be, although we talk about history. We're not talking about history. Somebody give me. The annual income. T.O. said the right was $500. $500 was the annual income. This is a climb. You know what the annual income for blacks were in 1940? Around $150, $200. The annual income. See, you know, if we need to know where we came from, we need to know where we came out of.
That's right.
See, I am here because I didn't like my fingers being cut picking cotton for $1 a pound, for a penny a pound, a penny a pound. I cut spinach for a penny a pound, and when you leave cutting spinach, your hands, you got a knife in your hands, you got to cut it, you cut your hand all up you do it. I picked strawberries for 5 cents a crate, little small pipe thing. And you know, it wasn't that so bad, but when you go to the field to pick the strawberries, they got the snakes laying out that they ran out of the patch. Now some of y'all know about this, and you cannot see. They always give me start walking when I get in something. You cannot see the strawberry. You have to reach into the. And you don't know whether you'll hit a water moccasin or rattlesnake or whatever it is. You never see the strawberry until you get in there and open that up and get under there. I sold iron. I sold rags. You didn't know you could sell rags during World War II, did you? And fatback was 10 cents a pound. Buffalo fish was 5 cents a pound. Catfish was 15 cents a pound. I'm saying this, and when black folk come in, you look at me, and I worked hard. My dad worked at a restaurant where Elvis Presley would always come, in Newport, and he was a cook. And my family don't like me to tell it, and I don't think they remember, because you have a tendency to get things out of your mind that you know was so bad. But I saw my family sit and wait till my dad came home when he picked the scraps off the plates that the more wealthy white people left. And we, like little birds, waited for those scraps to come in. That's motivation. And more of that, to see your mother out there pulling a sack, 60 and 70 pounds of cotton to try to feed a family. See, my dad worked for $5 a week. $5 a week. Now, with this all black folk? No, many whites were in the same condition. I mean, we're in the same condition. But this is what, it's where you come out of that makes the difference. That's the motivation. Say, and we got to face it. If you can't face it, you can't deal with it. See, so these were the times that shaped. Now, what was it that broke that? You know what it was that broke it? World War II. World War II broke it. In World War II, there was no unemployment. Everybody worked. You had to work. You know something else? Britain didn't have any money. Roosevelt, the United States, financed Britain's war. They had no money. I mean, these are, you know, if we get to know, but what I'm dealing, what we're trying, now, and let me get another thing now. We got to get out of it. One thing we must remember is another thing, and all the things that came out, we did not free ourselves by ourselves. Whites fought for black folks' freedom and died for it. You might don't let nobody fool you. There always have been decent people in every race. Okay. So when we know all of these things, we know how to move and how to pay the various prices. I attended a Ku Klux Klan rally. That's right. You know where it was? In Watson, outside of Pine Bluff. In a field, I drove through there one day on the highway, and they had the big flag burning. I mean, the big cross burning. I pulled up on the side of the road and got out, and sat on my car, and I was just as far from here as the people. They were there. But also, I had a white lady that worked for me in my printing company for my paper. Her daddy was a card-carrying Klansman, and he loved me. Her husband was a follower of Wallace. Now, you know why they liked me? That was the philosophy that I was doing something on my own, and they liked me for that basis. So this is what I have enjoyed. There wasn't any more questions, were there? Go ahead, honey.
I just want to know if you have auditioned for a play.
I am auditioning. I am looking for persons for it. I am looking for it. If any of you know, I am looking for. Now, in this play, though, we have some of the most beautiful voices. All those songs are sung in the play with others. They're beautiful songs. Thank you very much.
I got one more question.
All right.
You knew Pickens Black, right?
Yes, I was one of his
Pickens
daughters,
Black,
my little
was he
girlfriend.
one of the richest black folks here in Arkansas?
Pickens Black. How many of y'all know about Pickens Black? My sister, her first teaching job was at Pickens Black School. Pickens Black they owned 20,000 acres of land. They had, I myself one day saw them, I saw 75 tractors and 150 team of mules going to the field one day. I stayed out there. They had their own airplane. In fact, Little Pickens built his first plane himself, but his dad got scared that he was going to kill himself, and he bought him a plane. They had their own gin. This is not told. A lot of people do not. Now, while I'm saying, I would like to say that those kids were some of the finest kids. They did not have any uppityness about them. They were exceedingly rich. it is said that, let's remember this too, it was said that a white guy came to see Pickett from New York, and everybody wore brown color or whatever. You all know what, they've been around the farm. And he always stayed at the store. So the man came in about 8:30, 9 o'clock. He sat around. So Mr. Pickett was there looking after the bill. He said, went over to him and said, "Can I help you?" He said, "No, I'm waiting for somebody." So about 10:30, everybody said, "Can I help you?" He said, "No, I'm waiting for somebody." About 12:30, he finally got. He said, "Can you tell me what time Mr. Pickett's gonna come?" He said, "I'm Mr. Pickett." What we look for, you know, and why we put people in certain categories and areas. Now, and I heard said that black, light-skinned people were given more opportunity than blacks. That's not. In Fisk University, you couldn't get in unless you had straight hair and long, these schools. You couldn't get them. And it was for two reasons. One reason was that they didn't know whether there was some white man's outside child. You know, they didn't know who they were messing with. So they got along quite, you know. Indians, my great-grandmother is a full-blood Cherokee. But I can't get none of that money because Indians were hated more than blacks. So it was better to be black. So Indians said they were black rather than they were Indians. You ever heard that? You could not enslave Indians. They would die before they would be enslaved. So they said they were black. You look at it, you couldn't tell, you know, but they said that's what she said. But the more light-skinned person you were, and tell you something else, a lot of light-skinned folk are more prejudiced toward blacks than white people. I mean, this is true. I see over Kendra back, he laughed, he's a historian. They had, you ever heard of Blue Blood Church? These were churches that only black folk could go if they could see their vein.
That's right. On 9th Street.
No, I'm not making this up. If you couldn't show your vein, then you could not
belong to that church.
Belong to that church.
Right there on 9th Street.
And the strange thing about we got some rough times. I was almost lynched once. It was in Newport, where I came up. I was about 10, 11 years old. We were struggling, trying to find some iron to sell or some bottles. And there was right on the edge of town, there was a barn that had burned down. And, you know, when you burn down something, it's iron in it. So we brought your boy running around in it, trying to get the iron. And my family was a little different from the other families. So I went home, and the group went the other way. And when the man caught them, and they all said, "Reginald got that iron." So they came out to Reginald. And they came to my house. They asked for me, and I walked out. And they grabbed me. And my grandmother said, "Don't hit that boy no more." They said, "Get back to that house, Granny. We hit you." They put me in the back of the car, in the truck, between two big, burly white men, about 250 each. I weighed about 65 pounds wet. And as they went down the street to take me, where they going to do to me, to the barn, blacks began to come out of their houses and line the street. When I got there was a little paraplegic that he said, "That boy didn't get that iron." And they turned me loose. Now, I don't know whether they turned me loose because the boy told them, or whether they turned me loose because they was about to see a race ride. But nevertheless, I experienced that. See, I know the family now. They're beautiful people. I never told them what their dad did to me. Not to this day. But they think an awful lot of me, that family. You see, because hatred, they only hurts you. It's festers. So nothing wins over like, love. All right, been good with y'all. Thank you, sir. Huh? Okay, what did it speak?
Sit down. Introduce your wife who ran as a Democrat.
Well, I told you, my wife is 2 or 3 years younger than I am. Will you stand a minute? Where are you, baby? I mean, she begged me so long to marry me. I just felt sorry for her. Thank you all so much. Thank you, T.O.
Again, I would like to thank Mr. Hampton, Sharice Jones-Branch, Dr. Graves, and Elmer Beer for their awesome presentations, and I also like to thank you in the audience for showing up for the symposium.
Okay, symposiums like this, I think, are always important because there's just so much we don't know about Arkansas history. And this gives us a chance, or at least the scholars in the group, a chance to share the work we've been doing with the folks in Arkansas, the folks who would be most interested in this kind of study, and also people who might have information that we can use. Because, we don't know it all. I don't know it all. So I come to these kind of things to share what I've found, but also hoping that somebody will share something that they found with me. And so I kind of think of it as an exchange in that way. I'm sharing with you, you share with me, and all of this is dedicated to bringing more attention to the very rich history that exists in this state.
Well, there are instances, situations like this, where you have a gathering where you can actually vocalize the feeling, you can get the feedback. It takes a whole lot of talking to come to a real message. So let me say this here. Eric Hoffer speaks of, in his True Believer, he speaks of for any change to come, first it has to be talked about. There's a lot of talking goes into it. And it goes over and over. And out of all the talking, you might come out with maybe a page or maybe a paragraph of which way to go. Now the folk who talk about it, that's all they can do. Then there's another group that comes about it that can write about it. And then they take this talking and they write about it, they listen to all of this, then they write it, they bring it down to this page or so of action. And then the third group is you have the men and women of action. They don't talk about it, they can't write about it, but they can motivate people and they can deal with it and put it in action. So those 3 steps. So as much dialogue as you can have about problems, the more you can talk about it, the closer you're going to come to solving that problem. Because there'll be people that may be sitting in the back who can't, they can't talk about it at all. They can't write about it. But once it is finalized and you come to a conclusion that this is the way to go, then the man and woman of action come together and they make the change.